Have you ever felt like everything was going perfectly, and then suddenly, without warning, they pulled away first? One day, they are warm, present, and deeply connected to you. The conversations flow, the energy feels real. You can feel something building, something rare. And just when you start to believe in it, just when your guard begins to drop, they change. They become distant, slower to respond, harder to read, and then it happens. They step back, or worse, they reject you completely, and you are left there asking yourself the same painful question: what did I do wrong? Stay with this till the end, because by the time you finish this video, you will understand something most people never do. And that understanding will give you power most people never gain in relationships. Here is the truth that no one tells you. This kind of rejection is not random. It is not accidental, and it is definitely not always about your worth. There is a pattern happening beneath the surface. Avoidant people don't move like others. They don't experience connection in a simple, straight line. For them, closeness feels different. What feels safe and exciting to you can feel overwhelming and dangerous to them. At the beginning, everything feels easy. They show interest. They open up, even if just a little. You start to see their softer side, and that is what confuses you later, because you know what you felt was real. But then something shifts inside them. The moment the connection starts becoming deeper, their mind starts sending signals. Not signals of love, but signals of danger. Not because you are dangerous, but because intimacy itself feels like a loss of control. And this is where the pattern begins. Instead of moving closer, they pull away. Instead of exploring the connection, they question it. Instead of expressing their feelings, they suppress them. And then comes the move that hurts the most. They reject you first, not because they don't feel anything, but because they feel too much and they don't know how to handle it. Think about that for a second. The very thing that makes you feel closer to them is the same thing that makes them want to escape. This is why it feels so confusing, because from your perspective, everything was going right. There was no clear reason for the distance, no obvious mistake, no moment where things broke. It just changed. And that change feels personal. It feels like a judgment on your value, like somehow you were not enough to be chosen. But that is not what is happening here. What is actually happening is far deeper and far more psychological. Avoidant individuals have learned, often without realizing it, that closeness leads to discomfort, that emotional exposure leads to risk, that depending on someone can lead to losing themselves. So when things start becoming real, their instinct is not to lean in. Their instinct is to protect, and rejection becomes their shield. They create distance before the bond becomes too strong. They step away before they feel trapped. They reject you before you ever get the chance to reject them, because in their mind, staying in control feels safer than being emotionally exposed. This is why their behavior can feel so sudden, because you are experiencing the connection in real time, while they are reacting to something internal that you cannot see. You are responding to the present. They are reacting to fear, and fear moves fast. It does not wait for logic. It does not care about how good things actually are. It only cares about one thing: avoiding pain. So even if the connection is healthy, even if you are doing everything right, even if there is genuine compatibility, they will still pull away if the emotional intensity crosses their comfort zone. That is why they reject first, not because you failed, but because the connection reached a level they were not ready to hold. And this is the part that most people misunderstand. They think rejection means the other person didn't care. But with avoidance, rejection can actually mean the opposite. It can mean the connection was strong enough to trigger something deeper inside them, something they don't fully understand, something they don't know how to control. So instead of facing it, they escape it. And that escape looks like rejection. It looks like distance. It looks like them choosing to walk away from something that felt real. And that is what hurts the most, because you felt it too. You know it wasn't fake. You know there was something there. But what you didn't see was the moment it became too much for them. The moment when connection turned into pressure in their mind. The moment when emotions stopped feeling safe. And from that moment on, their actions are no longer about building something with you. They are about protecting themselves from what they feel. This is the painful pattern you keep missing. It is not about chasing harder. It is not about proving your value more. It is about understanding that some people leave, not because you are not enough, but because they don't know how to stay when things become real. And once you truly see this pattern, once you understand what is happening beneath their actions, you stop blaming yourself. You stop questioning your worth, and you start seeing the truth for what it is. Because this is not the end of the story. This is where their real struggle begins. That hidden struggle does not disappear after they step back. It actually grows stronger in silence. Inside them, there is a constant tension, a quiet battle between what they feel and what they fear. One part of them wants connection. It wants closeness, understanding, and emotional safety. But another part immediately reacts, telling them that getting too close is risky, that opening up means losing control, that depending on someone could end in pain. This conflict shapes every decision they make. When emotions begin to rise, their mind does not interpret it as something positive. It reads it as pressure, as something that could take away their independence, as something that might demand more than they are ready to give. So instead of leaning into the moment, they start creating space, even if that space hurts both sides. They do not always realize what they are doing. To them, it feels like they are simply thinking clearly or slowing things down. But beneath that surface, their nervous system is reacting. It is trying to protect them from a situation they associate with discomfort. This is why their behavior can feel inconsistent. One moment they seem present, the next moment they feel distant. It is not a game they are playing on purpose. It is a pattern they have repeated for so long that it becomes automatic. And at the center of this pattern is one powerful emotion: fear. Not fear of you, but fear of what closeness represents. Closeness means being seen. It means being vulnerable. It means letting someone have emotional access to parts of them they usually keep hidden. For someone who is not used to that, it can feel overwhelming. So when things start becoming meaningful, their thoughts begin to shift. They start questioning everything. They look for reasons why it might not work. They focus on small flaws, small doubts, small uncertainties. Not because those things matter that much, but because their mind is searching for an exit. And once they find that reason, even if it is small, it gives them justification to step back. This is where rejection becomes a tool. It allows them to regain a sense of control. It allows them to slow down emotions that feel too intense. It allows them to create distance without fully confronting what is happening inside them. From the outside, it looks like a clear decision. From the inside, it is a reaction to something they are not fully comfortable facing. This is why trying to convince them rarely works. Logic cannot calm a response that is driven by emotion. You can explain, you can reassure, you can show consistency. But if their internal system feels overwhelmed, none of that will fully reach them in that moment. Because they are not responding to facts. They are responding to a feeling they cannot control. And this is where many people make a mistake. They start trying harder. They give more attention, more effort, more understanding. They believe that if they just prove their value enough, things will change. But the truth is, increasing intensity often makes the situation worse. Because what feels like love and effort to you can feel like pressure to them. And pressure is exactly what they are trying to escape. So the more you move forward, the more they feel the need to step back. Not because you are doing something wrong, but because their comfort zone is being challenged. Their system is designed to maintain emotional distance. Anything that threatens that distance triggers resistance. And that resistance shows up as withdrawal, silence, or rejection. It is important to understand this clearly. This pattern is not about your effort being insufficient. It is about their capacity being limited in that moment. They are not rejecting you as a person. They are reacting to a situation that feels too intense for them to handle. And until they learn to manage that intensity, this cycle continues. Connection begins, emotions grow, discomfort rises, distance is created, over and over again. What makes this even more confusing is that they may not express any of this openly. They may not say, "I feel overwhelmed." They may not explain their internal struggle. Instead, their actions do the talking. They become less available, less expressive, less engaged, and eventually they make a move that creates separation. From your perspective, it feels sudden. From their perspective, it feels necessary, because in their mind, creating distance restores balance. It brings them back to a place where they feel in control again, and control, for them, feels safer than connection. This is the core of their decision-making. Not what is right, not what is meaningful, but what feels safe. And safety in their world often means space. So when they step back, it is not always a final judgment about you. It is often a response to their own limits. Limits they may not even fully understand themselves. And once you begin to see this clearly, something shifts inside you. You stop taking every action personally. You stop attaching your value to their choices. You begin to realize that what you are experiencing is not just a relationship issue. It is a psychological pattern, a pattern driven by fear, control, and emotional protection. And understanding this does not just give you clarity, it gives you strength. Because when you understand the reason behind the behavior, you stop reacting blindly. You stop chasing answers that are not being communicated, and you start seeing the situation from a place of awareness instead of confusion. But there is still one part of this pattern that most people struggle to understand. If they needed distance so badly, then why do they often return later? That is where the next layer of this behavior begins. That question opens the door to a deeper layer, because what happens after they create distance often feels even more confusing than the moment they left. Time passes, the silence settles in, the intensity that once overwhelmed them slowly fades, life becomes quiet again, predictable, controlled. And at first, that calm feels comfortable to them. It feels like relief, like they finally escaped something that was becoming too heavy to carry. But then something unexpected begins to happen. As the pressure disappears, so does the fear that was driving their decisions. And when that fear goes down, something else starts to rise again. Their emotions. The same connection they once tried to escape begins to come back into their mind, but this time it feels different. It no longer feels overwhelming. It no longer feels like something they have to run from. Instead, it starts to feel meaningful again. They begin to remember how things felt when everything was natural. The conversations, the energy, the sense of understanding, all the moments that once felt too intense now start to feel valuable. And this is where the shift begins. Distance gives them something they could not find when they were close: clarity. When they are no longer in the middle of strong emotions, their mind slows down. It stops reacting. It starts observing. And in that space, they can finally process what they could not handle before. This is why their feelings seem to return after they step away. Not because something new was created, but because the fear that blocked those feelings is no longer as strong. And once that fear is reduced, the connection becomes visible to them again. This creates a cycle that can feel confusing from the outside. They move away when things feel intense. They return when things feel calm. And this back and forth creates emotional instability for the other person involved. Because just when you begin to accept their absence, they show signs of coming back. A message, a reaction, a small effort to reconnect, and it leaves you wondering, what changed? The answer is not always about you. It is about what is happening inside them. When they are close, their focus is on protecting themselves. When they are distant, their focus shifts to what they lost. That contrast creates a push and pull dynamic, and without awareness, this pattern can repeat again and again. They reconnect when they feel safe. But as the connection builds again, the same internal response can return, and the cycle starts all over. This is why many people feel stuck in this situation. They experience moments of closeness that feel real. Then they experience distance that feels painful. And they keep hoping that this time it will be different. But without change on a deeper level, the pattern remains the same. It is important to understand something here. Their return does not always mean they are ready. It often means they are comfortable again. Comfort and readiness are not the same. Comfort comes from reduced pressure. Readiness comes from emotional growth. And without that growth, their ability to stay consistent does not improve. So even though they may come back with genuine feelings, those feelings alone are not enough to break the cycle. Because the issue was never the absence of emotion. It was the difficulty in handling it. This is why understanding their behavior requires looking beyond actions. You have to see the emotional timing behind what they do. They step away when intensity rises beyond their comfort level. They reconnect when that intensity is no longer present, and this explains something that often feels confusing. They seem to miss you more when you are not there. Not because your absence creates love, but because it removes the pressure that was blocking it. Without that pressure, they can finally feel without reacting. And in that space, their emotions become clear again. But clarity alone does not guarantee change. Because once they re-enter the connection, the same emotional conditions can build again. And if nothing has shifted internally, their response may follow the same path. This is why many people misinterpret their return as a final decision. They believe that coming back means certainty, that it means they have chosen the connection fully, but in many cases, it simply means they are no longer overwhelmed. Understanding this difference protects you from false expectations. It allows you to see their actions with awareness instead of assumption, because what looks like a clear choice may actually be a temporary state. A moment where they feel safe enough to reconnect, but not necessarily stable enough to stay. And once you understand this, you begin to see the pattern as a whole, not just isolated moments. You see the distance, the return, and the reasons behind both. And that awareness gives you something powerful. It gives you the ability to step out of confusion, to stop reacting to every change in their behavior, to stop attaching meaning to every message or silence, because now you understand what is driving it, and that understanding prepares you for the most important realization of all: what this pattern actually means for you, and what you should truly take from it. And that realization changes everything, because it shifts the focus from their behavior to your value. For a long time, it may have felt like their actions were a reflection of you, like every moment of distance was proof that something about you was not enough, that if you had said the right words, acted the right way, or given more, things would have turned out differently. But that belief slowly starts to break once you truly understand the pattern. You begin to see that their decisions were never a measurement of your worth. They were a reflection of their emotional limits, limits that existed long before you came into their life. Limits that cannot be fixed by effort alone. This is where your power begins to return, because instead of trying to solve something that was never yours to fix, you start focusing on what actually matters: your standards, your clarity, and your emotional stability. You stop asking, how can I make them choose me? And you start asking, is this the kind of connection I should accept? That shift is everything. It takes you out of a reactive state and places you into a position of awareness. Because the truth is simple, even if it is difficult to accept at first. You cannot build something stable with someone who is not stable within themselves. No matter how strong the feelings are, no matter how real the moments felt, no matter how much potential you believe is there, potential is not reality. Consistency is. And when someone cannot maintain emotional consistency, it creates a cycle that slowly drains you. You start overthinking. You start adjusting your behavior. You start trying to predict their next move. And without realizing it, you lose your sense of balance. This is why understanding this pattern is not just about them. It is about protecting yourself from becoming stuck in something that keeps repeating without real progress. Because connection should not feel like confusion. It should not feel like something you constantly have to figure out. It should feel clear, even if it is not perfect. And when clarity is missing again and again, it becomes a sign that something deeper is not aligned. This is where many people struggle to let go. Not because they do not see the pattern, but because they remember the moments when everything felt right. Those moments create hope. Hope that things can go back to how they were. Hope that this time will be different. But growth is not about holding on to moments. It is about recognizing patterns. Moments can be real and still not be sustainable. And once you accept that, you stop holding on to temporary experiences as proof of a lasting connection. You start looking at the full picture. You start asking better questions. Not do they care, but can they show up consistently? Not do they have feelings, but can they handle those feelings in a healthy way? And these questions bring you closer to the truth, because someone can feel deeply and still not be able to build something stable. Someone can return multiple times and still not be ready to stay. And understanding this protects you from false hope. It allows you to step back without anger, without resentment, but with clarity. You begin to accept that not every connection is meant to become something permanent. Some connections exist to teach you what you deserve, to show you what emotional unavailability looks like, to help you recognize the difference between intensity and stability. And once you learn that difference, your choices begin to change. You stop chasing emotional highs. You stop getting attached to inconsistency. You start valuing peace over uncertainty. And that is where real strength is built. Because walking away from confusion is not weakness. It is awareness. It is choosing yourself when something does not align with your needs. It is understanding that your energy is valuable, and where you invest it matters. This is the final truth that most people miss. You were not placed in this situation to prove your worth to someone else. You were placed in it to realize your own value, to understand that you do not need to be chosen by someone who cannot even choose stability for themselves. And once that realization becomes clear, something changes inside you. You stop trying to hold on to what keeps slipping away. You stop chasing answers that only create more questions. You start standing in your own certainty. Because the right connection will not require you to question your place in it again and again. It will not make you feel like you are one step away from losing it at any moment. It will feel secure. It will feel steady. And most importantly, it will not begin with rejection just to end with realization. It will begin with clarity and continue with consistency. And once you understand this, you no longer fear losing someone who cannot stay, because you know that what is truly meant for you will not require confusion to prove its value.